It's combine week, man, and everybody wants to be where the Eagles are, or the Chiefs, or the Bills, or the Commanders. Yeah, the top four teams from last year. I'll tell you where they all are right now in the offseason and give you some notes from the combine here today on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That's right. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. Make sure you tap in wherever you get your podcast, whether you look at them or listen to them, wherever you watch or listen. Make sure you find Locked On NFL because we will be there twice a day for your listening pleasure. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Shout out again to the everydayers who join us all the time. And if you are new, hopefully we'll give you a chance to become an everydayer if you come back. Here's what we're going to talk about today. My man Matt Williamson is actually on travel, coming from the combine, headed back home. So we're running solo dolo today. Normally we have a Friday guest with Matt and, all of our other guests, but everybody's at the combine and a little bit of trying to line things up with the schedule. So I'm going to roll solo with you, and y'all got me here in the barbershop. So here's what we're going to talk about: combine notes and rumors. And we're going to use Matt Williamson. He laid down some combine notes and rulers, gave us some T. Higgins information. So we'll go over that. We're taking a look at all the teams that made it to at least the conference championship game. So in the middle of the show, we're going to start with the Bills and Commanders and how they try to get one game better, although teams don't really look at it that way because it's a whole new year. However, we are then going to head to the top and talk about some of the challenges that the Eagles and Chiefs have in their offseason decisions, because they actually do have some tough things that they have to go over. So we'll start right there. We won't bear the lead anymore. We'll start right with the champion Philadelphia Eagles, because they have done enough to warrant that today's show starting at that spot. They have some things that they have to do. But I'm not going to feel sorry for Philly because they're one of the most talented teams in the National Football League. They're definitely, in my opinion, the most complete team in the National Football League. And they've drafted so well. They have a lot of guys on rookie deals. In fact, they have some very, very key players that are on first, second, and third year contracts. The Eagles aren't going anywhere, man. They got their quarterback. They got their two receivers. They got a tight end. They got a running back. They got a real good offensive line. They have draft capital to go ahead and also fill in some needs. They have some work to do on their defensive line, obviously, because a lot of the players, guys that they have chosen in 21 and 22, they're free agents. Like Ojomo is not a free agent, but Milton Williams is. They got a couple of questions about him. Josh Sweat is out there as a free agent. What do they do with that? How do they replace him? I think that's what we're going to get into and where we're going to start, because outside of Zach Bond, who's obviously a free agent. I looked at a free agency list today, and the top 10 free agents, the Eagles have 3 of them. And usually that would mean disaster, right, for a team. Not Philadelphia, because their best players are under contract for multiple years. And then if they really, really wanted to find a way, they could keep those guys, or they know they have people in development, man. And that's the thing about these teams. They always know themselves better than anyone else. Here's my man, Lou Dibiase from Locked On Eagles, talking about a potential big-name veteran replacement for Josh Sweat if they decide to let him go.
I actually thought Michael Bennett was a really good player for that team coming off a Super Bowl win. So maybe Khalil Mack can be your new Michael Bennett, where for a year he's that second guy in the rotation next to Nolan Smith, and him and Jalen Hunt have a similar snap count. And that's one of your guys in the 4-man rotation. I'd be okay with that. Like Khalil Mack, yeah, he's over 30, but if he wants to play football still, he's got a lot of juice left in him. Again, edge rushers, they age better than players at other positions. I mean, just look at his sack numbers. Last year, he had 6 sacks, which is good. 2 years ago, he had 17 sacks. 8 sacks in 2022, 6 in 2021. Like, this is a player that still has it. So I know he's older and, this might not be the move you love, but if Khalil Mack wants to ring chase and is willing to take a cheaper deal to go to a winner, like he's gotten his money, he's gotten his sack numbers. If he wants to go win a ring now, he's also an option on the open market.
That's a good point by Lou, because Khalil Mack, even though I think he's a Hall of Famer, and he probably has a little more juice than a guy who would take just a deal just to get a ring and be in a rotation. I think he still considers himself a starter, but the point has merit. And that point is if he does want to chase a ring and he'll work with us on the money, and it's not one of those deals where you got to sign a long-term contract, because I think a guy like Josh Sweat, who's in his late 20s, Josh is looking for that deal, that deal to go and be somebody's chief pass rusher. That's going to cost you $25 million. I don't know if he's going to get that, but I know that there's a team down I-95 in Washington that if they don't or are unable to make a trade for Myles Garrett, I heard that there's a rumor that they might double dip in Philadelphia with Zach Bond and with Josh Sweat. If that's the case, Philadelphia's going to need a pass rusher. There's no better guy out there, especially when you're losing the leadership of a Brandon Graham, to mix in with the young guys that Philly has and to be able to kill two birds with one stone. You give Khalil Mack, a guy that's had a Hall of Fame career, a chance to earn a ring and to still be a leader and have his value imprinted on that football team and that program in Philly. But the other thing that you do is you don't lose your ability to scare people on paper and chase a quarterback. And I think that that's a very, very important deal. So good job by Louis there, bringing that up and pointing that out. The Chiefs, they have other challenges. And the Chiefs' challenges are they tagged Trey Smith, the guard, who was set to be a free agent. So they're going to have a guard averaging about $24 million a year in salary if they do this correctly. They do have a way, though, even though they have Chris Jones making a lot of money, and folks are saying they've had to let a lot of people go because they drafted well. But when you start winning, everybody wants to get paid, and they got some big time guys making a lot of money. Jawan Taylor's one of them; he's making a whole bunch of money. So, and they have an awful lot that they have to do. To try to retain this thing. But then they have to get better, because you saw they had some deficiencies, especially along their offensive line. How do they do that? There's a certain player that can give them a whole bunch of help. Check out Locked On Chiefs.
What are the big things that Kansas City can do? There are several different areas that they could possibly look at. Ryan and I have talked about these. It's all over Chiefs Twitter talking about what they can do on the salary cap. The biggest one is obviously going to be Patrick Mahomes. That's something that they're going to address this year. I don't know what they're going to do exactly. They're going to make it. They're going to get into free agency. They're going to have an answer on one of the, which is Travis Kelce and what he's going to do. I do know that it came out that Brett Veach expects him to return. I'm going to play devil's advocate and go both directions and say, what it would be if he did return, what it would be if he didn't return. Because he hasn't specifically stated he is going to be back in 2025. Brett Veach believes he will be, but he hasn't gotten that answer from Travis Kelce, and Travis hasn't said anything that I've seen to this point as I'm recording this right now. So with the Chiefs at $8 million in cap space, they're going to need $3 to $4 million probably to sign their draft class. So that puts them at about $4 million left. That is not going to be enough to sign all of the veteran players that you need to re-sign, all of the free agents, all the undrafted free agents, all of the restricted free agents that you want to try to bring back to this roster in 2025. They're simply going to have to make some moves. We've talked about the easiest one with Patrick Mahomes a little bit. I'll get into that here in the next segment a lot more. Another easy one to make an adjustment on is Chris Jones. We've seen that he is going to continue to play at a high level. At least he did this season. So he is worth what they're paying him right now. I don't think that would keep them from making any kind of move with him. So I wouldn't be shocked if they make a move with Chris Jones.
The heavy hitters in Kansas City is what can really help them. If Patrick Mahomes gets a new deal where it's structured a certain way to lower that salary in anticipation that they could kick that can down the road, because the salary cap is going to keep going up and up, that would definitely help them. And then some void years with Chris Jones, who looks like he's going to retire a Chief and head right to Canton 5 years later. He could also help them do a little bit of that with some upfront cash to lower his number so they could get some people in and maybe get into the market for, you never know. Maybe they go out and try to get Ronnie Stanley, or maybe they get into the market of moving up and making sure they secure the kind of tackle that they need to protect Patrick Mahomes in the future. We're going to look at the two teams that were runners up. That is the Bills and the Commanders before we get to our draft talk in segment number 3. We'll be right back here with segment number 2. We're going to talk the two teams that were runner-ups in the conference championships and how much closer they can get to getting to the Super Bowl. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip or want to be in on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. I love using FanDuel. Their live betting feature is the truth because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3. I never feel like I missed a chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we're moving along here on Locked On NFL, a Friday edition, running solo dolo just because the combine is going on and guys are interviewing, clocking people, and all of that stuff. We'll hear from Matt Williamson in segment 3, but right now we're going to talk about the Bills and the Commanders right here in the middle of the show. Two teams that got close, but close does not count, right? Philly didn't seem like Washington didn't seem like they got that close, but that game was a lot closer than the score indicated. They just made some critical mistakes. How close are both of these teams to being able to get over the hump? They got some people chasing them now. Detroit and Baltimore and some other teams in these conferences, the Rams, they're like, hey, man, don't think it's sweet. We're coming. So they got to try to get closer to the teams that they lost to and keep those teams that are coming behind them. How do they do that? Well, the Bills have managed to once again get started on an offseason that kind of, it's kind of indicative of who they have been in the past. When you think they're done, they are absolutely not done. When you think that they are out of talent or they're losing too much, they develop and they reward their own guys, whether it be Deion Dawkins in the past. They have players in development that they absolutely believe in. And one of them got a big contract just the other day while the combine was going on. My man Joe Marino from Locked On Bills is here to tell you all about it.
Khalil Shakir signs a contract extension, and Brandon Beane met with the media at the NFL Scouting Combine. We're breaking it all down for you today. Wide receiver Khalil Shakir has signed a contract extension. Brandon Beane met with the media at the NFL Scouting Combine, talked about the offseason and a lot of the players on the roster. And so we'll break it all down for you right now. We will start with the big news. Khalil Shakir locked up, 4-year contract extension worth up to $60.2 million, $32 million guaranteed. Khalil Shakir staying in Buffalo. He signed through the 2029 season. Let's break it down. So Shakir was a 2022 fifth-round pick. Just turned 25 years old. And he was entering the last year of his rookie contract. And that was a 4-year, $4 million deal. And his salary in 2025 was $3.3 million due to the proven performance escalator, which exists for non-first-round picks for the 4th year of the rookie contract. It gives them a bump if they meet certain playing time thresholds, or even there's some Pro Bowl incentives as well. So Shakir gets a nice extension, and he had a good season for the Buffalo Bills, really the number 1 receiver for the team. I I use that loosely, right? Not necessarily Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, but for the Bills, the receiver that had the most targets, the most receptions, the most yards, he was the guy, right? He had 21% of the team's targets.
Khalil Shakir is a really, really good player. I really liked him when he came out of college, and he has proven to develop to be everything I thought he would be. He's really, really quick with the ball. He's almost unstoppable on his little shallow crossers. You get him going one way and James Cook going the other with that speed and with the power of the offensive line to be able to protect a mobile quarterback like Josh Allen. And then with their tight ends, Dalton Kincaid, they are a dangerous, dangerous offense, but they continue to do the things that good teams do. And what that is develop your own guys, re-sign your own people, promote from within, keep the continuity, keep the weapons that you have. Don't become a farm system for other teams around the league. And it's looked like it's going to work out just fine for Buffalo. I'm very, very happy to see that the Bills are continuing to shut guys up like me, because if y'all notice here in the barbershop, the Bills were one of those teams that coming into last season, I had my doubts about them because I thought they lost too much too soon. Little did I know they had so much in development, and now they have continued to do that in the 2024, 2025 offseason, rather. And I think the outlook is really, really good for them, and I'm intrigued to see what they do with James Cook contractually, and then what they also do in free agency and the draft. So they got off to a really, really good start, and I don't think they lost any ground in the AFC. With Washington, the biggest thing with Washington, everyone talks about the on-field stuff. The on-field stuff is great. The off-field stuff, the culture had to really, really get fixed. And from the outside looking in, you're thinking, okay, they got Jaden Daniels, they got a better coach. They started winning. The enthusiasm's back. That fixes the culture. That's wrong. What happened was they did a lot of things behind the scene before we ever even saw them play that began the process of really, really, really rooting out all of the poison that had been in that organization with Daniel Snyder. They got off to a good start doing that. You always wonder if it'll manifest itself, and it absolutely has. The NFL did a poll, as they always do with the NFLPA, about all sorts of things, and Washington's front office got rave reviews from the players. Check out my man David Harrison here on Locked On Commander.
The Washington Commanders clearly in 2024 got better on the field. Turns out they also got much better off of the field. That according to the NFLPA's National Football League Player Association's team report cards, which came out for all 32 NFL teams, but specifically here, obviously, we're going to talk about the Washington Commanders. And to me, the most important grade that we're going to talk about, we're going to start off talking about, is the most important grade because it is the most important grade that Dan Quinn talked about when he was asked Wednesday at the podium during his press conference at the NFL Scouting Combine, and that was the treatment of families grade. The Washington Commanders in 2024 got a treatment of families grade of a B+. And for those of you not completely familiar with these team report cards, what happens is the NFLPA, the NFL Players Association, the union that represents NFL players, sends out these survey report cards to players, all NFL players that are registered with the NFLPA. And these players have the option, they don't have to necessarily, but most of them choose to fill out these report cards and give a grade on various topics, and give their team a grade based on how they experienced it, what they feel of the facilities, of the team, of the personnel, of the support staff, all of that stuff. So in the treatment of families category, the way that Washington Commanders families are treated by the organization, the Washington Commanders got a B+.
I know there's some people around the league, and I've even heard people in my own hometown when they read the report about the Jaguars players who complained about the way that families are treated, they go poo-poo, boo-hoo, y'all are millionaires, who cares? Well, relative to the other 31 teams around the league, they absolutely care. This ain't about you and your job and whether or not your job has this or how much money those people make or whatever. This is relative to the rest of the league, and the way it's not like the only players that play for your team, that the only team they've ever played for is yours. It is a comparison business. They do it in the NFL, they do it in the NBA, they do it everywhere else. So I will never, ever, ever criticize someone who criticizes their employer when I don't work for those people, right? That being said, it's good for Washington. And it's something, if there was one city or one town or one fan base that really, really needed some good news, not only the off the field, it is Washington. If you don't believe me, just Google all of the trouble that they have been through over the last couple of decades, and you will certainly understand why, at least to some fan bases and to some media members, it is understood what the importance of that is around the league. Combine news and notes. Big guys got after it yesterday and went to running or rumbling, however you want to call it. We'll discuss what we saw there and what we're hearing. Matt Williamson will tell you what some rumors that he's hearing concerning T. Higgins on Locked On NFL. All right, Combine got going. It's going to get going here today again. Got my TV set right here in my office, ready to watch some of the guys work out and get their thing going on. Yesterday, we saw a bunch of big dudes rumbling, tumbling, and rumbling. Some dudes made a lot of noise, man. Shamar Stewart did exactly what I thought he was going to do. It seems like Shamar Stewart understood the assignment, right? He's been understanding the assignment in these workouts. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. He looked absolutely unstoppable there. And he got out there and he ran yesterday. He ran somewhere in the 4.6s, maybe a 4.6 flat or a 4.59. That's at 265 pounds. Trayvon Walker a couple of years ago ran in the 4.5s, and Jadeveon Clowney, I think, ran a 4.53. So not quite as fast as those guys, but very, very freaky athlete. And I think he's a guy that people are now asking if he's the top pick overall. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do believe he is someone who is going to end up in the top 15, maybe even the top 10, because those traits are very, very important. Traits does not mean he's a project. Traits just mean they're going to ask him to do stuff that the tape hasn't proved that he can do because he wasn't asked to do it. So they're going to use the athletic ability to see if he's going to be someone who's going to develop into a big-time player. A lot of other stuff, man. Make sure you check that out on NFL Network or wherever you watch the Combine. A lot of big news. Most of the big news early are the interviews and what position is Travis Hunter going to play. I think, and I said this on yesterday's Locked On NFL, I think he should play corner and spot as a wide receiver as opposed to playing wide receiver and spotting as a corner. I just think it's very, very difficult to do that. I think corner is and I'm not poo-pooing wide receiver. You got to be able to run your reps and get your footwork down, get your timing down with the quarterback. It is all important. But there's no way you cannot practice full-time as a corner and guard guys like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. It's just not going to happen. So I that's what I think he should do. But the news is that most of the teams that people have talked to want to play him at wide receiver, and that's because people love scoring touchdowns, and they don't really sometimes understand the value of guys who can stop touchdowns from being scored. When it comes to free agency, the big news is with real free agency, it's Trey Smith getting the franchise tag, and we talked about that earlier with the Chiefs, and the franchise tag being being said that they were going to put the Bengals were going to put the franchise tag on T. Higgins. Listen to what Brian Peacock and Matt Williamson said about that issue.
What have you got for us? What's going on at the NFL Scouting Combine before we get to some of these testing numbers? A couple big time runs from some big time players.
I'm getting the impression that T. Higgins is going to be a Bengal. Just some Bengals stuff that we were kind of chatting about today. I think he's going to end up staying. They're going to work something out, and I think they're going to totally revamp their defense. I mean, like almost the entire defense could go. You know what I mean? So a lot of cuts, maybe Hendrickson stays or goes. I didn't get a good feel on that, but just some kind of a Bengals nugget is keep Higgins, dedicate the whole offseason to defense after that.
Yeah, the Higgins one is interesting because it doesn't seem possible, and it seems almost like counterintuitive that you would let potentially Trey Hendrickson go, or that you'd even be able to sign Hendrickson to the contract that a defensive end of his caliber is going to demand, and then sign T. Higgins, and then do the even bigger mega contract for Jamar Chase after you've already done a big contract for your quarterback. And it seems rather dubious. And if you had to choose, you would seemingly choose the defensive end over the number 2 wide receiver.
Brian Peacock there makes a point on the Peacock and Williamson podcast That does seem like from a positional value standpoint that's how that will work. But Trey Henderson also is, I think, 30 or in the early 30s, and T. Higgins is like 25 years old. So I think you keep the younger guy, even though the positional value tells you need to go the other way. The model of the team that I'm going to use here, since we're using the really, really good teams that we talked about earlier, is Philadelphia. Philadelphia paid both wide receivers and their quarterback, and they're still good. They won the Super Bowl. Here's the difference. Philadelphia paid those guys. Cincinnati can pay their big three. But Cincinnati has to then hit on their draft picks and have a bunch of young guys on rookie deals the way the Eagles do. They don't really have that. I think Cam Britt-Taylor is a very, very good player. They got some other spots, but they fired their defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, and I thought that was crazy. But if they're going to totally start over with a revamped defense and a revamped scheme, I don't think that's out of the question. So I look for them to possibly try to get something done with T, maybe make a trade Trey Henderson to a team that needs a pass rush, that believes they're close. We mentioned a couple of them earlier, a few of them. In fact, we've already mentioned them. It's not just Myles Garrett. It's not just Josh Sweat. Trey Henderson may be a dude that also nets a draft pick for the Bengals, so the Bengals can then move forward and build their team. Lots more to do at the combine. Different guys working out today. I have it on right now. We'll see how it goes. But so far, it looks like the defensive line, especially the dudes on the interior, well, both on and on the edge, that while there may not be a whole bunch of guys at the top of the draft that people are just in love with, I believe the value falls within the second and the third and maybe even the early fourth round. And teams may start trying to load up and move backwards and put themselves right in a position to get multiple bites at the apple at those positions. All right, man, you get multiple bites at the apple with Locked On NFL. Matter of fact, you get two twice a day, a minimum, unless you want to watch it all over again. But you'll get Tyler rolling early in the morning like a double shot of espresso. And then me slide through the barbershop where we keep it cool, we laid back, but we get all up in people's business. And for the most part, we use the help of local experts to help us get through the day and navigate all of the subjects so that you can get all of the best information. But occasionally, like today, we go solo dolo and we give it to you like you can't get anywhere else. It's Locked On NFL wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you check in and check us out. We appreciate you joining us. We thank you. We'll be back Monday morning, bright and early, with I'm sure a whole bunch of stuff from the combine, good and bad, and we'll continue to keep you abreast on any rumors that may fly around with all of these guys trying to get traded, having the blessing of their team to seek trades, permission, and all of that stuff. We'll keep you abreast of everything. Until next time, you guys take care. I'm Tony Wiggins. Thanks for joining us here on Locked On NFL.